Thank you, Paul. Yeah, well, good afternoon. It's good to see it's still 30 people online for the last two talks of the second day. What I'm going to talk about today in behalf of my research team is relative expressions in Htanaw, which is just one more installment of our ongoing project of documenting and describing the Htanaw language. The topic, relative expressions, I will zoom in from Htanaw language in general through clause and phrase structure, noun phrase structure, and then have a look of some details of relative expressions, which pose some interesting questions in Htanaw. As you probably know from previous ICAALs, those of you who were at ICAAL meetings know that Htanaw is a language in pretty intensive contact with other languages. Htanaw is a small language spoken by about 3,000 people in southern Shan State in Myanmar. The villages, about 6-7 villages at the moment who use Htanaw in daily life are not in the mountains, they're on the plains or on the high plateau of Shan State, which means they have easy access to other populations, other people, other languages. Htanaw usually produce agricultural products like ginger, turmeric, potatoes, which means they have to communicate with other people on the markets to sell their products and buy other food and product for daily needs. So this is just a general setting of Htanaw. The language, as I said, is in contact with other languages. In daily life, people in Htanaw villages do use Htanaw as their first language, but all of the Htanaw are pretty much fluent in Burmese as well. So Burmese is the major second language which is used in school, in administration, in dealings outside of the village. Most Htanaw also do have knowledge of Ba'o, a Karenic language, which is sort of dominant in the language in the area locally. Inta and Taoyo and the newer Burmese varieties spoken in the area, which most Htanaw also understand. Basically until independence and then the coup in 1962, Shan was dominant in the whole of Shan State, including the area where Htanaw is spoken today. So Shan is an important former contact language. It's not really spoken in the area anymore. Now let's just trying to look at the clause structure of Htanaw, which is not surprising for a Southeast Asian language. The only thing you need in a clause is a verb phrase, and the only thing you need in a verb phrase is a verb, the main verb. So one verb can make a whole clause, but in Htanaw you can add prefixes and suffixes. You can have multiple verbal predicates, multiple verbs in one predicate. The basic word order is subject, verb, object, with the normal variation you get in the area with fronting or afterthoughts. Sentence one here is just one example of a bit more complex sentence, including a subject, verb, and object, and then adverbial in the beginning, which itself is complex, including a verbal clause, verbal phrase, with the subordinator, which may or may not be cognate with the we saw in Nicobarese earlier this afternoon. Now let's zoom in to the noun phrase structure. As I said, Htanaw is basically verb-medial, which means it's head initial, and this is reflected in noun phrases with modifiers. So the modifier follows the modified. Sentence 2 here, language Shan, Banati. Shan is a nominal modifier, a noun which modifies the noun Bana language. Sentence 3, Nyabe, house, they, pronominal possessive modifier. Be is third person indefinite pronoun, meaning they are the people with not no clear reference to a person. Then to mark cases or spatial relations in Htanaw, you do have a prefix the, again, the thing we saw in Nicobarese earlier, the Nha in the house. Nha really looks like the Vietnamese word for house, and that really looks like the Nicobarese locative or oblique marker. So very nice connection here. So locative or oblique can be marked by the prefix on the noun. Then there are lexical or full word prepositions like go inside the water, go on, which is basically a noun, a relator noun functioning like a preposition here in this sentence. Then, interestingly, kind of also uses some postpositions like na in sentences 6 and 7, a na, I, kui, blah, blah, blah. So this na means with, the same as in sentence 7, actually. This na is pretty certainly a loan from Inta variety of Burmese. Burmese is a head final language, verb final, using only postpositions. So in this case, Htanaw seems to just have taken over the word form, including the position. So the noun phrase is pretty mixed in Htanaw, and this is also reflected in the relative expressions, which we look at in some detail now. We just heard from Irina that the b prefix in Austroasiatic is usually used as a causative marker. This is not the case in the Palaungic languages to which Htanaw belongs. Here the b prefix marks relative. It's a coincidence, probably no connection at all between the causative and relative marker b, but it just looks very similar. Now, again, interestingly, in Htanaw, relative expressions can be post-nominal, as would be expected in head-initial language, or they can be pre-nominal, which is more expected of a head-final language like Burmese, which, of course, is an important contact language. So we may suspect some Burmese influence here. Usually, NPs containing relative expressions are followed or end with a marker which is basically a demonstrative element, which can be used as a topic marker, such as n medial or na distal demonstrative, with different tones. Htanaw has very interesting tone sandhi rules and other tone changes, which are not fully understood yet. But basically, a complex noun phrase tends to end in a topic marker or a demonstrative marker. You see here, this na is also, looks the same, sounds the same as the postposition, the commutative postposition, which adds to the confusion sometimes. Then there is a marker me, which we're not really sure yet what it does, what it means. We usually gloss it as additional event. It can mark future, but it very often occurs in relative clauses, in relative expressions, where it doesn't have a future meaning at all. So not sure yet what to do with this. My hypothesis at the moment is that this me is actually a reanalysis of the Burmese future relative me, and just lost its future notion in Htanaw. We will see examples of this. And the head noun can be dropped, so you can have only a relative expression instead of the complex noun phrase, and the head noun is understood. This is an example here in 8. I will go where they say sell vegetables. They sell, and here we have this me, and here it's not future, so maybe it marks relative, maybe just it's compatible relative, we don't know yet. So I go to they sell vegetables, and here the verb is at the end. This is pretty common that you have the verb at the end, especially if you have complex arguments before the verb or in the same clause. all the examples that follow have been elicited from native speakers from Htanaw, thanks to Han Tin, who is in charge of collecting new data all the time. So we can get new data online only because we cannot go to the village or to the villages at the moment. So the pattern of post-nominal relative clauses, the expected relative clauses, is you have a noun, then you have an optional verb prefix on the verb, and you have optional demonstrative or topic marker after the verb. What is maybe unexpected in the Southeast Asian context is that the relativizer is a prefix on the verb rather than a clause-initial subordinator, as you have in languages like Shan and Thai and other languages of the area. So here, the house where mother lives, the house, and then mother, our, which lives. So the relativizer is on the verb, and the na here concludes the complex noun phrase. Again, the house here is marked with the external function of house here is marked with the prefix. The young people, the children who studied, lo ba balela lai nu. And here you can see the nu. The same element can be used as medial demonstrative and as topic marker in the same clause, in the same phrase, actually. So this is no problem in Htanaw to stack these demonstratives for different purposes. Now, more unexpected is to have pre-nominal relative expressions. The pattern is pretty much the same. You just move the n to after the relativized verb. The verb still retains, optionally at least, the prefix, and you still have the topic or demonstrative marker after the noun in this case. Sentence 11, the food I ate yesterday, I, which ate food yesterday, I like a lot. Again, the whole sentence is verb final, and the relative clause here, opus verb, is placed before the head noun marked in yellow shadow here, swing when. In sentence 12, similar thing. The day the day on which she needed the motorbike. Here, the spatial relation or the case of the relativized noun cannot be marked anymore because it's preceded by the relative expression. So this slot is taken. You cannot have a the here anymore. So spatial relations tend to be left open in complex relative expressions. Another interesting thing that we found in some of these sentences is to have a resumptive, or probably you should call it a presumptive pronoun when you have a post-nominal relative expression. The children who studied passed the exam. They, which studied the text, this, children, this, succeeded in the exam, they passed the exam. So the head noun here is lope, and the an just is used to foreshadow sort of the head noun. And then the head noun, the whole expression is marked with the nu topic here. The first nu refers to the light. And here we have the me, traditional event or relative. Here again, certainly with no future connotation, because it's the children who studied. So it's a past situation, and the me here, maybe it marks relative, maybe it's just added for some reason. So after we looked at the data, after we got these data and went through it, it didn't really look Burmese to me. Basically, the first thought, of course, is Burmese is the main contact language. So Htanaw is heavily influenced by Burmese. Maybe these pre-nominal things are just Burmese. But it turns out that Pa'o, the Karenic language, which is spoken in the area, and many Htanaw do speak or at least understand, is much closer to the Htanaw patterns. So we elicited the same sentences from Pa'o native speakers who live in Chiang Mai. It was easy to get access to them. So we got the same sentences and we could compare directly. And you see here, again, the head noun is marked in yellow. It's pretty much the same. Pa'o uses a g prefix on the verb, where Htanaw has the b prefix. And then you have a topic marker now, which also serves as a demonstrative in Pa'o. Here I have the distal marker na in Htanaw. So pretty much the same. The only thing that is different is that the possessive first person singular in Pa'o precedes the head noun. My older brother, Kweweko. Whereas in Htanaw, Ma'o, the possessive has to follow the head noun. If you have negative relative expressions, in Htanaw, the negative prefix la is usually dropped, and you only have the negative suffix ga, whereas Pa'o retains both prefix da and suffix dao to mark negation, but drops the relative marker, the ga prefix we had in examples 14. And Pa'o also has pre-nominal relative expressions, parallel again to Htanaw, as you can see in 16, A and B, Amta, the thing I ate, or the I ate thing, corresponding to Htanaw, Opaswe, so very similar here. And again here, pre-nominal relative expression with no 5 minutes, some minutes ago, with the spatial relation not marked here. In Htanaw, the same sentence, we only got this with the post-nominal relative expression, but it would be possible also to move it around. But here in Htanaw, the locative marker is retained because the slot is empty before the head noun. So, conclusions. I have 2 minutes for conclusions. That's great. If we look at the features of Htanaw relative expressions, verbal affix, in Htanaw, this is found throughout Palaungic, the b prefix with some variation, of course. Burmese uses a verbal suffix to mark relative, but it's still a verbal affix. Pa'o has a verbal prefix, just like Htanaw, as you have seen. Shan doesn't do that. Shan, the former contact language, former dominant language of the area, uses a clause initial relativizer an. Then we have pre-nominal relative expressions not found in other Palaungic varieties, what I have seen so far. In Burmese, that's the only place where to have a relative expression. In Pa'o, not in Shan. Post-nominal relative expressions not found in Burmese, but in all the other languages. Unmarked relative expressions found everywhere, but not in Burmese. In Burmese, you always have to mark it. The resumptive pronoun construction or presumptive pronoun is found in Htanaw, in Burmese, not in Shan, also in Shan, not in Pa'o maybe, but we just don't have enough data. No one has agreed yet to write a good grammar of Pa'o. Then topic marker can be added in all languages, not in Burmese. So Pa'o is the language that matches the Htanaw pattern the best fit to the Htanaw pattern. And you've seen that Htanaw is a nice mixture of inherited and acquired features. So Htanaw ends up being different from both its cognate languages and contact languages. It came up, or it ended up with a pattern of relative expressions that are different from all the others. Maybe Pa'o, the resumptive pronoun here, maybe we have to make this green as well, then it would be a pretty good match. But I think we can say that Pa'o really has a special role in the development of Htanaw, and it seems to be much more important in the restructuring of Htanaw than Burmese, which is now the dominant language, has been the dominant language of the area for the last 60 years at least. Okay, thank you for listening, and if you have any question, we have 10 minutes, I think.
Thank you, Mathias. That was very, very good and well timed. We have 10 minutes. While people are composing their questions, can you say something more about the present situation with Pa'o in the area?
Pa'o is spoken throughout the area. Most Htanaw villages are mixed, actually. Dampohla, where we get most of our data from, where Hantin is from, is the only non-mixed village. But still, Pa'o plays a role there. Like in temples, Buddhist ceremonies are frequently held in Pa'o rather than Burmese, not in Htanaw. Many people don't have active knowledge of Pa'o, but they understand Pa'o to some extent.
Okay.
Where's the place in the last slide? You mean the slide that's showing now? Lynette?
Yes, yes, it is.
Yes. This is the primary school in Dampohla village, which I showed on the map on one of the first slides, about 40 minutes drive south from Aombam between Galaw and Inle Lake. So this is the school in the main Htanaw village. The photo was taken on my last field trip in January 2020, almost 6 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I have another one. So you said that, so your assessment was that syntactically Pa'o had been more important in the restructuring of Htanaw than Burmese. To what extent does that also apply to the phonology?
Phonology, well, the Htanaw is an Austroasiatic language, which is very different from Burmese to begin with. Pa'o is pretty similar to Htanaw, and you can see a co-evolution maybe in the neutralization of final consonants. So in Pa'o, they still write ong and lam, like the final nasal velar and labial, which in Htanaw has been all but neutralized in present-day speech. So the phonology is very similar. Sentence structure is very similar. And maybe Pa'o is a good candidate for influencing a language like Htanaw, because Pa'o itself is pretty diverse in its structure. Because a Karenic language, that means it's a language that changed its sentence structure at some point from verb-final to verb-medial, retaining some features of verb-final or at-final. So I think the whole package makes it pretty close to Htanaw in phonology, in syntax, and also in lexicon, obviously.
And do we have any sense of how long the Htanaw have been living in that area?
There is no history of Htanaw because it hasn't been written for until very recently. So we really don't know, but it's a pretty peripheral Palaungic language. It's very different from the other Palaungics in the area. And guessing from the outcome of the contact with Pa'o, it looks like it must have been quite a long time. According to the Htanaw themselves, they have been there forever. They don't have any legends or history of moving from somewhere else.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Nathaniel, any lexical borrowings that can be confidently be traced back to Pa'o? Yes, there are. Let's see, for example, in 15b here, 15a, 15b, you see the young person, the child, lo be, lo be. Lo is person, be is small in both languages. Lo is obviously the cognitive Burmese lu, person, and be is pretty certainly borrowed from Pa'o into Htanaw. There is quite a few Pa'o borrowings. There's also some Burmese, like the Lela, which I have here. But there's a lot.
Any other questions or comments? Mathias, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up your session?
Well, if there's no questions, I think, well, maybe just to add to Nathaniel's question, the lexicon of Htanaw is very diverse. There's not much that can be traced back to Proto-Palaungic, as Paul, you probably remember from the list.
Yes.
There is quite a bit of Shan in Htanaw, Shan lexicon. Some of it, at least, certainly entering the language via Pa'o, guessing from the form of the words. So the language is very mixed, and well, what we need for the future is more Pa'o data, I think. We really would need access to Pa'o grammar. And if there are no other questions, I think we'll have a bit more Palaungic today.
Okay, so we have a couple of minutes for Ruckel to get ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.